Everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. I have a pretty major update to share about one of Trump's Capitol terrorists. It's time for an episode of Where Are They Now?
Matthew Bledsoe was arrested.
Patrick Montgomery was in court.
Jonathan Manapa will stay in federal custody.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
So Jason Dolan is a 45-year-old former Marine from Florida. He is accused of being a member of the far-right extremist group known as the Oath Keepers. Dolan was charged along with, I believe it's now up to 17 others, and they were all charged for numerous crimes after investigators alleged that Dolan took part in the January 6th domestic terrorist attack at the U.S. Capitol and entered the building that day. Prosecutors also allege that Dolan attended 10 online meetings with other Oath Keepers, and the meetings were called, quote, DC planning call. Kind of sounds like they were planning something, right? Dolan is also accused of joining an encrypted messaging group through the Signal app, and that group was called Oklahoma, Florida, DC Op Jan 6. Again, kind of sounds like they were planning something. Kind of sounds like they had a secret op going. And he was also seen in hotel security footage, rolling a luggage trolley through the hotel hallway with what appears to be 3 long gun cases. We also know from the FBI reports, their indictments and other documents in this case, that numerous members of the Oath Keepers discussed having a, quote, quick reaction force at a nearby hotel. And we know that that hotel was located across the river from DC because DC doesn't allow weapons, but you can go right across the river to, say, Virginia, and you're okay to bring weapons. And for anyone who's unfamiliar with a quick reaction force, basically it refers to an armed group that can be called upon, that can show up within a short period of time with a stash of weapons. So on the day of the attack, Dolan is said to have been part of that military stack formation. That was the group that ascended the Capitol steps. They each had their hand on the person's shoulders in front of them as they walked up, and they were all wearing military style gear. And he allegedly, according to the FBI, took part in forcefully entering the Capitol. The initial indictment and then superseding indictment stated that Dolan joined not just with other Oath Keepers, but also, quote, a mob that aggressively advanced toward the Capitol, assaulted officers, threw objects, sprayed chemicals, pulled violently on doors. And then there's also surveillance camera footage of Dolan that was taken inside the Capitol. And he allegedly pushed past an officer who was physically trying to hold them back, trying to stop them from entering the building. Now, following January 6th, his actions didn't get any better. After the arrest of his travel companion, which is a man named Kenneth Harrelson, Dolan basically swept his entire home. He cleared out any of his weapons. He got rid of all of his Oath Keepers' clothing. And in addition, he deleted all of his emails on the day that Harrelson was indicted, which was March 12th. And when he and his wife were interviewed by the FBI, they claimed that we don't have any weapons. We don't even keep weapons. Weapons, what would we do with those? The problem for them is that their neighbors and their social media profiles showed and said otherwise, because even his wife's Facebook profile picture was a photo of their young daughter pointing what appears to be a semi-automatic rifle. And I mean, young, the daughter looked like she was elementary school age at the time of this photo. And even though this guy must have known, he had to have known he was in deep shit, he took part in an interview on the right-wing rag called the Gateway Pundit. In that interview, Dolan repeated this debunked conspiracy theory that was going around on the internet that the Capitol doors were magnetically locked from the inside. So they must have been opened by Capitol Police. And, they let them in willingly. They wanted them to come in so they could frame them, I guess. But anybody with 2 or more functioning brain cells who's been paying attention to the evidence in this case knows that there were multiple Capitol terrorists who broke the windows. We watched this on video, and they climbed through, and then they walked around to other doors inside the Capitol and opened them from the inside to allow more of Trump's terrorists into the building. There are literally videos of that happening and of outnumbered officers trying to stop them. But like I said, they couldn't. I mean, they were overwhelmed. Nevertheless, Dolan maintained in this interview that, quote, as far as I know, there was never any pre-planned intention, operation, criteria to go into the Capitol. Now, if you guys have been following the show for a while, you know that I've said, and this was, again, in indictments, they show documentation of them communicating on various apps and in these meetings of person number 1, which is the leader of the Oath Keepers, the founder of the Oath Keepers, telling them, I want some of you outside the Capitol as well as inside, something to that effect. So they did have a plan to enter the Capitol. So the grand jury, who has looked at all of this evidence, they're not buying his story. They indicted Dolan and all of the other Oath Keepers on various crimes, including conspiracy, obstructing an official proceeding, destruction of government property, and entering a restricted building or grounds. So Dolan was looking at some very serious prison time. I mean, if he was convicted on all counts, he would be spending a lot of time behind bars. I mean, if the judge even allowed him to serve all of them concurrently, he would face up to 20 years in prison. Not a comforting thought, considering that this is the father of seemingly young children, right? And a wife to care for. Well, the FBI just announced that Dolan has taken a plea deal, and yesterday he pleaded guilty to the 2 most serious crimes, which were both felonies. That is the conspiracy and obstructing an official proceeding. Dolan also admitted to forcing his way into the Capitol, as well as taking a rifle along with him to DC. And it appears that he admitted to others taking weapons and stashing those weapons at that Ballston Hotel in Virginia. In fact, in his plea agreement, it states that, quote, that Dolan, quote, believed that he and the co-conspirators were trying to obstruct, influence, and impede Congress. And it goes on to say that they did so by, quote, intimidating and coercing governmental personnel. So this is huge. This is the second Oath Keeper now to plead guilty to conspiracy. And Dolan was also forced to admit that he deleted all of his communications and his photos to obstruct the investigation. And also, as part of the plea deal, Dolan will be required to testify before the grand jury, relinquish any financial information, and to speak with investigators as they see fit. So this basically disallows any other defendant, any other Oath Keeper defendant that's named in these indictments in this conspiracy from saying, no, I didn't take part in a conspiracy. You now have 2 of your members saying it was a conspiracy. Now, although these 2 charges would still carry a maximum 20-year prison term, prosecutors have agreed to a sentence which ranges from 63 to 78 months due to the fact that he has no prior convictions. So he's still facing 5 to 6 years away from his family and for a lie. That's it. I mean, literally, that's what it boils down to. He literally got conned by a lifelong con man, and he's going to spend 5 to 6 years potentially away from his wife and children because he fell for it. But prosecutors did confirm that they would request a lower sentencing term in exchange for his, quote, substantial assistance. So we'll see if they even go lower than that. I hope not, because again, we need to send a message with this. So this is huge. Like I said, this is the second Oath Keeper to plead guilty to conspiracy. There's no way, there's not a prayer in hell that any of these other Oath Keepers are going to go before a jury and say that they didn't take part in a conspiracy, and that jury is going to say, oh, okay, yeah, I believe you, even though two other people testified against all of you and said, yeah, we conspired ahead of time. So these people better just open wide and swallow their medicine. I mean, as my aunt used to say, it's time to get to getting. They better get to getting. Last one in's a rotten egg. So they better just all nut up, ovary up, and figure it out and admit to what they did. And I think that in the long run, what they're after is the founder of the Oath Keepers, Stuart Rhodes. I think that they want him. They want to cut the head off the snake. And they're doing whatever they can to get to him, because he didn't go into the Capitol, but we do know that he was in DC that day, allegedly, that he was on the grounds somewhere near the Capitol, because in all of the indictments, it states that they all met. All of the Oath Keepers met with Stuart Rhodes after they left the Capitol, and that they were, I believe it said, approximately 100 feet away from the Capitol. So he was there. And again, remember, they just through a warrant, they just took the phone of the attorney for the Oath Keepers in this case. That was also a huge deal. So we don't know what that phone contains. We don't know what exactly they were after, but they did talk about additional charges, possibly sedition in particular, which is monumental. So yeah, these people better just figure it out. They better just swallow hard. Anyway, guys, I will let you know when I hear more. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.